Hello, I'm back. Apparently the phone overheated, so turned itself off. So I haven't got the light on it this time, so I have to see what the light is when that comes through. But I've got my daylight bulb, so hopefully that's enough. It should readjust. I'm learning. People come back. I know I only had a big total of 5, but come back. Oh, they're coming back in again. Okay, so I've carry on. I've done the stamping of the fish now. So we need to colour those. So I'm just going to get a red and a yellow. So like I said, I'm going to be using the Inktense pencils. Okay. And I'm using Sun Yellow and Chili Red to colour them in. So get my water brush. You can obviously use a normal paintbrush and water, that's fine. And I'm going to go straight from the pencils. I'm just going to give it an undercoat of one colour, try and colour them in different ways. Like I said, this isn't a normal colouring video like some of my other YouTube videos. It's more with the background, so I'm just going to speedily go through these. If you've got any questions, obviously pop them up, that's fine. Also, I do find that I go quiet when I'm colouring, which is why I tend to speed them up anyway. It's one of those things you do and don't even think about. And because these are Inktense pencils, I'll give them a second coat in a minute anyway, just to make them a bit brighter. See, I've gone quiet while I'm doing it so you can hear next door banging around. I did a lot of banging yesterday, so hopefully you won't do too much today. It's the just to give it a hint of colour really, because these are going to be under everything else. So let's go back to that one. And if you didn't have this stamp, by the way, I think I put on there that there was a couple of alternatives. So you can use the, you basically need to have a stamp with a bird's eye view on it for it to work. Because obviously the point in this is that it water ripples above what you're colouring in. So the Pink Ink Design Sea Turtle, that one's got a couple of the little turtles that are on there, and those ones are from above, so that one quite works well, which I've got there. So I've started that, so we can do a bit more with that while this one's drying. And also, if you imagine if you went to an aquarium and you went to a rock pool where you'd have like the shells and starfish and things like that, so that works quite well as well. So there's obviously some starfish on that sea turtle one, but also on the Nerissa stamp there's a couple in there too. So although obviously I'm using the Pink Ink stamps here because it's the design team that I'm on, but obviously there are other stamps you can use, that's fine. But because this is a new launch, I thought I'd share it. So just going to get fine liner pen. This is just a Uniball permanent marker one, and I'm just going to fill in the whiskers so I find they're a bit fiddly for colouring in with a watercolour pen. Just hides up there. So once you're happy with that, I'm just going to give it a quick blast, heat gun, just to make sure it's dry. Because when you do the background, you don't want it mixing with the red and the yellow. So should be fine. Nice and warm. Okay, so onto our background. So get our colours, and I am going to be using basically a light green, a light blue and a dark blue. The colours I'm using for the Intense pencils are Spring Green, Iron Blue, I think it was Iris Blue I used the first time round, but anyway, and Bright Blue. So sort of a combination of those kind of colours seems to work quite well. And basically you're going to be using the wet on wet technique. And I'm going to switch my water brush over to a slightly bigger one because I'm doing a bigger space. So let's put that down there. And we are going to start in one area and give it a good wash with water. This is why I like using the water brushes, because it's you can control the amount of water that's coming out, and you've got to keep going back to the water pot, back to the water pot, back to the water pot. And you can see some of my yellow isn't quite dry there, so but it's fine. We'll work with it. So it's more than a shine that I'm adding on there. Hopefully you can see that. And as long as you don't get puddles like I just did there, just spread that out. It's quite wet that you want it. This works with any of the, including if you're using a wet watercolour, like the multi-surface paints. So if you were to use the pink ink ones, for example, the ones that I showed you on that small sample, that's gone, that one there, that is using green apple, Atlantic blue and pastel cornflower, and obviously the wetness will add to it, and if you don't have as much wetness, that's when you'll get the pooling of the shimmer. So it's up to you what kind of effect you want, basically. So going all around the edge for this, and because I'm using Intense pencils, once they're dry, and the same it will be with the multi-surface, they're permanent, so they won't reactivate. So you haven't got to worry too much about going over, but if you're not, and you're just using a normal watercolour, just be careful you don't go too much over it. So I'm going to start with the light green, quite a bit on there, but so that it's a watery brush, and just going to do some random dabs basically in all the wet places that we've just done on that area there, and then change the colour to the lighter blue, and again random there. Think about the going up to the edge of him, and obviously if you overlap onto the green that's already there, it will start blending the colours too, but you want to be careful not to blend the colours all too much so you don't end up with just one colour. You want to identify between the three different colours, and as you can see at the moment it's still quite blotchy, so this is where we use the water mister. So if we just do a couple of sprays there, it will make it more fluid, and we can just mix them into each other a bit better there. And you can add or take away however you want to. So you see I'm getting quite a blend of one colour there, so I'm just going to add in one just to activate it a bit more. And then to do the ripple effect while it's still wet, we want a wet brush but not soaking wet, so it's damp, and we're going to extract the colours. So you're going to do it in sort of a swooping motion. So you can see that there. Think about how the water goes, so it's sort of almost spirals but going off the card. This whole thing is to build up the layers, so more and more you do it. And obviously if you wanted to, you can add back in colour too. So if you want to add a bit of green, you can make the swirl with the green or even with the blue. I'll do one over there. And this will all build up onto it. So then carry on across the rest of it. So again, give it a good wetting first. If you're doing quite a large area, you know, if it's like an 8x8 card or something like that, just bear in mind that it's going to dry as you go round. So this is the reason I'm doing slightly smaller sections, because you want it all quite wet still when you finish doing this, so that you can do your water splashes. So it's not going to dry immediately, but just bear that in mind, that you want to keep everything quite wet. So add in these blues. Again, it's blotchy, so we'll do the water spray. Obviously, if you're using the water spray, just keep it away from the streaks you've already done already, or otherwise you're going to lose that pattern that you've done in there. So, just going to make sure we've got everything on there that's covered. We don't really want any white space. So again, going with the streaks. Last section over here, the same thing. So you can see you can have it as dark or as light as you want, and obviously play around with the colours. Some of it will blend. You might have one area that's a little bit darker than the other. Say the water spray just helps just put those colours back to blending into each other, but not giving you a harsh line between them, so it doesn't look like you've just dabbed it on with the brush. Okay, I add these, so you can see this is building up the background swirls at the moment. And then, like I say, while it's still wet, then we want to load the brush with the green first. So quite a bit of water in there at the same time, and then we're just going to flick it on there. Squeeze out a bit. Need some more water in there, obviously. There we go. And because the background's still wet, this will spread. Let's just do the same with the blue. So this gives the impression, I think anyway, of so if you've got the above the pond or the river or whatever it is that you're looking into, that there's sort of things in the sky or further away from the actual water, so clouds and things like that, bits that are in the sky that you won't necessarily see all the time. So these will disperse. You can obviously give them an extra help if you want. Excuse me. And then we need to dry that before we move on to the next step. So I'm just going to give that a dry now. Oh. Hopefully you're seeing it now, Mum. I think it's because I had the light on the phone, and that's what was overheating it, which is a shame, but hopefully it's light enough for you to see what's going on. It's almost there. Okay, Right, so that's almost dry. So what we're going to do is show you how to do the shadows, because this is the next stage. So you can see on this one here that the shadows are quite far away from the koi. So the way to do this, you can, when I originally did it, I sort of eyeballed it and tried to work it out for myself, but actually I found a really cool way of doing it, to work out sort of where you should be putting it. So we'll just get a scrap bit of card, and we've got our koi on there. So we are going to ink it up like this and put it in the same direction as we've got the first one there. And then with the second generation, so not re-inking at all, we are going to place again a little bit further to the side where the shadow would effectively go, and then using a pencil, I'm just going to colour in the bits that you can see underneath. And then this will give you the guide as to where to put the shadow. Obviously you won't have any detail, it's just going to be the wisp, but it means like that little bit of fin that you can see underneath, that will show you exactly where it needs to go. So if we did the same with the, yeah, the other one was that way round, isn't it? So let's do, so I can do all three and show you. So yeah, those two are facing the same direction, so I'm not going to worry about that one. So they'll be the same. But the other one, so let's ink up that one. So this one here is going in that direction, and again we're thinking about the light coming in that way, so it's going to point it in that direction. So that's going to be the second one there. So again, get our pencil. I'm using quite a dark pencil here to colour it in, just so it blocks out, because we're not worried about the detail. Like I say, it's the main shadow of it that's going to be appearing. So that's how you work out that. That works the same when you do, if you were doing these little ones here. I've done the same with the turtles. So worked out where the shading would be there. So that's exactly the same technique, and obviously that works on anything. And the further away you do the shadow, the deeper the water is. So it's up to you how you do it. Just remember, obviously, if it's further away, depending on how much light you want or anything like that. So I'm going to get our, I've got an black Inktense pencil here. So using this as our guide, I'm going to switch back to the smaller brush for this one. So let's start with the top one here. So like I say, we're going to have the shadow going in this direction here. So let's get a little bit. So you just want to do sort of our outline-ish first of the actual belly of the fish. Do the tails like that. Think about our little wing fins here. We've got that little bit that pokes up there, and when it comes to this bit of it's quite a fine bit. You're not really going to see a lot of it, so just a hint of that, just not too much. And then of course you can go back in and make it darker if you want to. That one there, and then copy the same if we do that one as well. Again, outline of the fish. Okay. Wings. which I might actually water out a bit more, I think. Okay, and then the same for that one. So this is quite a bit of it has gone the other way. So start with the bit that you can see the closest to, and then you can work away from it. So, so it's almost the whole of the fish there is in front. You can obviously start light and then build it up afterwards. And that's how you add the shadows. So we need to let that dry, which I am going to heat gun it. So everything's nice and dry there now. So we need to add colour splashes again, but this time they're not going to be as muted as these. You can see here I've got these ones with this I'm pointing out. So these are almost as if you've got leaves on top of the pond, or you know, like the shadow that you'd have from those that you see. Sometimes it gives you that weird shadow. So again, we want our blue and our green. And nice wet brush and lots of colour on there, and we're going to go in. I'm going to have to use the bigger one because it's not working on that. Yeah. We want nice big splats really. There we go, that's better. Okay, blue ones as well. Don't know why I'm not getting these big splashes today. Doing something. There we go. I think that will work. It's going everywhere else except for on the card. Sometimes you can get splashes to work really well, and other times they just go everywhere except where you want them. There you go. That's much better. Right. Okay, so I'm happy with that now. Again, I need to dry that, and then we're going to start with the white. So we do the white gel pen before the white splashes. This is because obviously if you do the white splashes with like a gesso or an acrylic, when you do the pen it will draw through the line, it won't look as effective. You could end up drawing through the splash, I mean, and it won't look as good. So I'm just going to, that's all nice and dry there. So we've got our gel pen. This is just a jelly roll one, but any gel pen, you obviously your favourite one, whichever you're working with. Now we're going to do the same kind of motion as we did with the water when we were taking it off with the water, but we're going to do it. Don't worry if it doesn't always come out every time, you know, if you end up with missed sections, or because you need to do the first part of this with a really loose hand, if that makes sense. So sort of just go with the flow of that's what's going to happen, and that's how it's going to be. Yeah. And then you can go back in afterwards and make those lines brighter. So I've got my initial lines there, and then I can go back in on the lines I've already done. If you do this the first time round, you will end up being too precise with it, and it won't look like it's water ripples basically. And obviously you do want some that go over the fish this time, because it will show up better. And then this is how, over the fish and the shadows, this is how you get that effect over it. So especially this is where you want to be accenting it, and think about ripples overlapping each other. again, it's just playing with it. And then when you're happy with that, then you can go at it with your white splashes. So you can use, obviously, you can get the Inktense watercolours. They do them as a palette, which the white in that is actually really good for this. You can use the Woody straight off, and I tend to just brush it straight from there. Or like I said, I have the Pink Ink White multi-surface paint already pre-mixed in here, which I like to use. So I'm just going to get my rainbow brush. So you can see it's quite a loose consistency there. So just move everything else out of the way that we don't want covered in white splashes, because it is going to go everywhere. And then we are just going to do the last bits. And I didn't necessarily want that right over the top of her head there, so let's see if we can soak that back up again. Yep, just about. So, there you go, you never knew it. And then just give that one last blast and that should be done. So I hope you like this. Obviously it would be nice to get more than 5 viewers, but I do realise I only gave people about half an hour notice. So to be honest, it's the first one I'm doing. I didn't want like hundreds of people watching it. So. Yeah. So that is the finished on there. Yep. That was obviously the original, so different colours. But I would like to have a go with the multi-surface paint, because I think the shimmer will probably add quite a nice effect to that. So I might do another one later and I'll share it, and I'll do it with the seashells and stuff already, as I've started the turtles. So I'll do that and I'll share it later on. Thanks for joining me. Bye bye.